May the 4th be with you guys. Welcome to the channel. International Star Wars Day is among us, and we are here to talk about Star Wars today. We're going to talk about games, we're going to talk about the movies, and things that really Star Wars meant to myself and many other people around the world. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. We're going to talk about it right after this. Alright guys, welcome back. Again, we are going to be talking about Star Wars today, and some of the things that I recall from when I was younger is being able to go to the movie theater and originally seeing, I think it was The Empire Strikes Back. I think that was my first movie I saw because, well, I really wasn't alive when the original Star Wars came out, like many of you who are watching at home. I got to go see it with my mom. I was really just a little kid, so I really don't remember too much. I remember going to the theater, but I don't remember the full experience. Now, when the special editions came out, yeah, I was in line, ready to go see those movies. So the great thing about those was the line. A lot of people think about, well, the line really shouldn't be fun. Well, the line was fun. For me, the line was fun with the special editions. Some of the memories I remember are going and getting in the line and talking with the fans. You had people who dressed up like characters from Star Wars, whether it's Jedi, whether it was Boba Fett, whether it was any of the other cast that came out there. I even ran into a couple people that cosplayed as Lando, which was pretty cool. Myself, I never really got a chance to do any of the cosplaying because I couldn't afford to make any of the costumes. But looking online and seeing what people really do and what Star Wars means to them, for instance, one of the greatest companies out there, one of the greatest groups out there, I should say, is the 501st. The 501st is a great group that goes out and they do charity work. They go out and see sick children in hospitals, cancer patients, and they really bring a lot of joy to people who are out there. I did see one of the first large appearances by the 501st at the Rose Parade in California, which I actually ended up taking some recording of. Not a very good recording, but it was one of my first videos, if not my first video I put on YouTube many, many years ago. I'm going to link that right in the upper right-hand corner over here, just so you guys can check it out if you want to. If not, well, I do invite you to go ahead and watch it. Now, fast forward to the newer movies. The newer movies really weren't too bad. There are people that really give it a ration of garbage because it wasn't exactly what they were expecting. You got to think of it this way, guys. The actors got old. You're talking, what, 30? Going on 40 years almost? Since the original movies came out. Carrie Fisher unfortunately passed away before the last movie was completed. So they had to write her out, they had to kill her off. I don't know if it was written to where she was supposed to pass away, but unfortunately that's what happened, and they had to revamp things a little bit. The CG version of her was okay at the end of the second to last movie, but, I don't know. I'm still kind of torn in the last three movies. I did like them, I did enjoy them. I did enjoy the final battle sequence of the last movie, on the Rise of Skywalker. So I really can't complain about that too much because there was a lot of really good action in that movie. Now, going away from the movies right now, other than, Rogue One was actually pretty good. I can't really turn that one down. But going into the actual games, though, I remember back in the 80s, arcade, Star Wars was released. They actually just re-released it on one of those new Arcade 1 cabinets. I think it's Arcade 1. So that you could actually get that if you want to. It's a little more expensive than some of the other ones because it actually has the steering wheel kind of controller. So from what I understand, though, they did a really good job with that particular one and not necessarily having to do a bunch of emulators to get it to work. Some of my earliest games that I played that were Star Wars related, other than that particular one, you had The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. They were all released on the Atari 2600. It was a super side-scrolling shooter. You're basically flying around and trying to take out AT-ATs. So, um, I died a lot in that game when I was younger because I really didn't know how to play the game. These days, if I actually played it, I probably still would die a lot still as well. But, really can't complain. Um, I know they had games on the Super Nintendo and on the Nintendo. The Super Nintendo games, they were like Super Star Wars, Super Empire Strikes Back, Super Return of the Jedi. They were super interesting, to say the least. So, um, that was when games for Star Wars really started picking up. You shoot up into the N64. The N64 had some amazing Star Wars games, but it was on the PC where the games really started to shine. When you started looking at things like Dark Forces 2, they were some of the first Star Wars first person shooters. They kind of reminded you, gameplay wise, of Doom and Doom 2, just with how the games were formatted. But that's where a lot of the games leaned at that time. PlayStation 2 came out. You had Battlefront 2. Those were some amazing games, and they were revolutionary when it came to the Star Wars games in terms of your shooters and massive amounts of people playing at the same time. Not necessarily against each other, but taking out a lot of the stormtroopers and just playing and enjoying the game. Um, Rogue Squadron on the N64 was an extremely popular game, and it was probably one of the best Star Wars games on the Nintendo 64. Now, if you do have any games from Star Wars from back in those days, Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo, any of those classic games that you want to share and share your experiences with, please, by all means, leave a little bit at the bottom and tell us what you think about those particular games and if they really stand the test of time. For myself, a couple of my favorite games are actually right behind me. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. Those games were the first Star Wars RPG games that anybody really liked. On the original Xbox, I know many of you really don't have an original Xbox, however, they do have it available on Steam. I believe they're only about $10 each, if that. So if you want to experience those games, go out there and buy those games and just play them and enjoy them. Enjoy them for what they were, enjoy them for what they are, because they still are great RPGs. Now, one of the first MMOs that Star Wars really had, they've only had a couple, obviously, but you had Star Wars Galaxies. Star Wars Galaxies was the first MMO released by Sony Online Entertainment on computer. It lasted for a number of years. They had a number of expansions. The last expansion was Rise of the Wookiees, which unfortunately killed the game. It nerfed everything, and everybody just decided they wanted to hate the game. Hate it, hate it, hate it. It fell flat. Sony Online Entertainment eventually shut the game down. But what many people don't realize, there's still a huge following for that game on private servers. So you can go out there and you can still get the game, and you can still play on private servers. I know because I have a family member who goes out there and plays them. The nicest thing that I ever had in that game was a golden stormtrooper as kind of like a pet, I guess you could say. But you can go out there and he'd go raise Cain with everybody else. Now, while Star Wars Galaxy was a great game for the time, it passed its time up. So the most current MMORPG that Star Wars actually has right now is The Old Republic. I personally purchased The Old Republic when it first came out, but I kind of trailed away from it because I really couldn't afford to pay the $10 or $15 a month that it actually was. I know now you can actually download the game for free and get up to a certain level without having to pay anything. And they've also released a number of expansions since that particular game has come out. So if you haven't had a chance to try it, go on to, I think it's the LucasArts website, or just look up Star Wars The Old Republic and download it and give it a try and see what you think. Some of the other things I have behind me, I do have Star Wars on Blu-ray. It's the first 6 movies. Well, the first 3 movies and then the prequels, obviously. I do actually have an autographed picture here, much like what I had on the wall. I just didn't have any more picture frames to put up there. But it is an autograph of Uncle Owen. who has passed here, I think, within the past 5 or 10 years. Um, it was cool meeting somebody from there that was there for the actual movies themselves. I did manage to briefly meet Peter Mayhew at Star Wars Celebration 4 in Los Angeles, which is really cool. Some of the other things behind me you're going to notice, I do have some plates right behind me. These are from the Heroes and Villains collection for Star Wars by the Hamilton Mint. So they are really cool. You know, you got the Emperor, you got Darth Vader, you do have Luke Skywalker, Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You have Boba Fett, you have Han Solo, and there is a Princess Leia also. There's also a few others that they had expansions for, like an expanded series to it. I believe they had a Chewbacca, they had... who else did they have? They had Jabba the Hutt, and there was like 2 or 3 other plates. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but they were actually really cool. They were made really, really well. Now, these days, there are still Star Wars games that are coming out that have come out. They have been canceled, like they were going to originally make a Knights of the Old Republic Part 3. However, that was canceled many, many years ago. Star Wars, for many people, is a lifestyle. You have the good, you have the bad, you have the light, you have the light side of the Force, you have the dark side of the Force. If you really looked at it, it's like current politics. Politics, I don't want to bring that into this, but you know, you have your good people, you have your bad people, and it really depends on who you talk to. Much like the dark side and the light side. You can, if you think about it, you can really see where both sides are really coming from. In terms of, you know, the Sith. They really want to be in control of everything. They want to rule through fear. Whereas the Jedi, they don't necessarily want that, but they want order. They want to help keep the peace more than anything else. So you have people who are like that right now as well. But, you know, it doesn't always work out in favor of everybody. So, hopefully you do enjoy this video. You know, I do wish you a happy 4th, as in, may the 4th be with you. And hit the like, hit the subscribe, and down below, please go ahead and tell us some of your favorite moments in Star Wars and some of your fondest memories, whether it's with the actual movies themselves, the TV shows such as The Mandalorian, or if you want to even go look at the old Ewoks TV series that was around during the 80s that really fell flat, then by all means, go ahead and say something about that as well. If you're a toy collector, say something. I was a toy collector for many years when it came to Star Wars. Unfortunately, my collection got too big and I had to sell it. I miss my collection, but I still do have a couple little keepsakes here and there. So, until next time, game on, guys, and may the 4th be with you.